So, welcome tonight to our Periscope PD, all about STEAM and arts integration. I'm Susan Riley, the founder of EducationCloset.com. I'm so excited that you're joining us for our PD tonight. Feel free to stop in, say hi, let me know who you are, where you're from, if you have questions, all of those wonderful things. We do this every Tuesday. So I'm excited that you're here joining us. Tonight, I'm actually going to talk about game nights. One of my good friends from high school, Cal Eisminger, actually hosts a Hollywood game night in Hollywood, California. He has a website and everything. Check him out, calsgamenight.com. And it got me to thinking, I love that he does these game nights with these Hollywood celebrities. It's kind of shocking, I think, that people need someone to run a game night for them. But they do. They have Cal and his group coordinate the game night, and Cal kind of sets up these different games and kind of has them rotate through them, and everybody has a wonderful time. So as I was thinking about that and thinking about how amazing this is that he has this business that does this, I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could think about a game night and what we could learn from that for STEAM and arts integration professional development? Because who doesn't love a good game, right? So one of my favorites to do are board games. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not a huge fan of Monopoly. It takes too long. We don't have that much time. But I do have three of my favorites, and each of them has something I think that we can really learn from that in regards to STEAM and arts integration. So the first one is the game Trouble. And if you don't know how to play it, it's this board game that has 4 different colors, and it has a popper in the center. When you tap on it, it gives you a number, 1 through 6, and that tells you how many spaces you can jump out. Now you have 4 or 5 little players that you can use when you jump out, and it goes around the circle. So when you pop that number, you have to be really strategic and think about, am I going to move just one player around the board, or am I going to take a risk and maybe hop out another one? And maybe somebody might come around, and when they hop their number, it's going to jump on top of me and send me home. So the game of Trouble is really a game of risk. How much risk are you willing to take? And when it comes to arts integration and STEAM, that, my friends, is the buzzword, right? How much risk are you willing to take? How much risk are you able to take? And that's not an easy question, because we have all kinds of different things that are put upon us, right? Either from administration or from parents or from just the way things have been done in the past. And so that can be a little challenging, quite honestly, when we think about that. So think about your amount of risk and what you're willing to take and what you can take. Now, beyond that, risk is also a matter of what are you willing to push in terms of the boundaries. I had this great conversation with arts educators over the weekend, and we were talking about the idea of pushing the boundaries, taking the risk, and why more educators aren't willing to do it. And really, I think it's because we're held back by this ingrained belief that if we take a risk and we fail as educators, we are going to be held accountable for it. And while that may be true in some scenarios, the likelihood of you losing your job because you took a risk for what was best for students, what was best for kids, is highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely. So it has to be a strategic risk. Just like in that game Trouble, it has to be strategic. You have to think about, is this a risk I'm willing to take? How much risk am I willing to take? And maybe you just do a little bit at a time until you get comfortable with that. So that's my favorite pieces about Trouble. The other piece about Trouble is that you have to pace yourself. You can't do all your risk all up front, because then you're always going to be sent home and you're never going to win, right? So you have to pace yourself through the game and think about where your players are and kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Same is true for arts integration and STEAM. You can't go all out of the gate all at once. Pace yourself, little bit at a time. Okay, second board game, Clue. Who doesn't love a good game of Clue? You know, Candlestick in the library. You know, the thing about Clue is that you never get the whole story up front. you don't get all the pieces all at the same time and figure out what the end of the story is, right? You don't, because that would ruin the game. The same is true when it comes to our thinking about arts integration and STEAM. You don't get all the pieces up front. When you start in an arts integrated lesson, 9 times out of 10, what you end up with is going to be different than where you thought you were going to end up or what you started with, right? And that is part of the fun. It's figuring out the pieces as you go. Having a game plan is important. Having an end goal is so critical, but having the flexibility to be willing to be surprised by what your students create and maybe take a little detour here and there. That's important. The other thing about Clue is that it causes you to think critically and it forces you to ask really great questions. Because if you don't ask good questions in that game, you're not going to win. You're not going to figure it out because your questions were lame. So you have to think about really good questions. We have to do that in our arts integration and STEAM lessons. They are predicated upon us asking the very best questions. So one of the ways that I help educators to kind of think about this is think about your questions up front. Identify them up front. So create a list of them and then weave them in throughout the rest of your lesson. Okay, and then let's move on. Last board game, life, the game of life. So in the game of life, the whole idea is that it's going to throw you curveballs, things that you didn't see coming and things that felt improbable. So the same is true when we're thinking about an arts integration lesson. Quite honestly, when we're thinking about STEAM lessons and arts integration lessons, you're going to have curveballs thrown at you. Your schedule is going to be messed up. You're going to have kind of things that you didn't anticipate come your way. Students are going to come with experiences you didn't know they have, or they're going to come with like zero background knowledge on that. So you're going to have those curveballs, and being able to navigate your way through that lesson despite and because of those curveballs is going to be really important for you. The other thing about the game of life is to think about what's your goal. Do you want to end the game with a bunch of properties and a lot of money and like Zippo kids? Or do you want to end the game with a huge family and a modest-sized home? That kind of determines how you play the game, right? So when we're thinking about a STEAM lesson or an arts integration lesson, think about what's your end goal. Don't, think about weaving in all of these different pieces if it doesn't work towards your end goal. Start with that end in mind, and then the game becomes totally based upon your idea, like your freedom. You get to decide how your lesson is going to go. You get to decide, how you're going to play the game, not anybody else. So you kind of can not determine your own rules, but you get some ideas there. And then the last piece about life, the game of life, is that it's more fun with more players. So the more players you have, the more fun your game is going to be. Same is true when we're thinking about our STEAM and arts integration efforts. Be sure that when you're doing this, you're not doing it alone. Even if you're the only one in your building who is attempting to try this, reach out online with others in your community. Reach out and build a community around yourself so that you have a team to play with, because I'm telling you, this is not any fun if you don't have anybody to play with, and your lessons get better and better and better. The more people that you bring in, the more ideas that come into your lesson planning, the better your STEAM showcase and your STEAM efforts are going to be. So that's where we are with STEAM game nights and kind of thinking about those 3 big games. I'd love to know your favorites. I'm going to post this over on the Education Closet website. It'll appear next Thursday. So be sure to hop over there. Let me know your favorite games in those comments. Would love to hear from you. And be sure to tune in next Tuesday, because I have a huge announcement that is coming out for many of you who are interested in arts integration and STEAM, and you are not going to want to miss it. In fact, if you're an email subscriber, you're going to hear about it tomorrow. So those of you who have not yet subscribed to our email list, you may want to do that just so that you get a jump start. Otherwise, I look forward to next Tuesday when I can share this great, exciting news with you. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I look forward to catching you up next week on Periscope PD for Arts Integration and STEAM. Bye, guys.